Hey, how's it going, guys? What is up? Soros here once again. I do apologize that this took a little bit long to do, but anyway, here it is. Today I'll be covering Prometheus weapons grid, and basically like my thoughts and how good it is, or like maybe is it viable option to go with, kind of thing. First and foremost, I can definitely say that Prom Grid is a great route to go to, especially if you're planning to do a free-to-play primal grid on Fire. Fire is in a little bit of a problem when it comes to grid making, but regardless, all the other options are really just great. At the end of the day, it just really boils down on how much effort and resources you want to put into them. I've been using this grid for quite some time. If any of you have been my stream for like at least the last few weeks, since I've more or less completed this grid last MagFest, as in not the one that just got completed or ended, the one before that, which is the summer one. Hell, I even used it for quite a bit in the last Fire Favorite Guild War, which I'm quite certain you're probably seeing it on the screen right now. Anyway, my experience with it has just been really good. Though, as mentioned before, I don't exactly use it in like the majority of the content. For all I know, right now, the only time that I would really use it for is Tiamat Malice. Besides that, I really tend to just rely on my Highlander setup. But we're not exactly here to talk about that Highlander. So, the Prom Grid has one obvious problem: enmity. Enmity these days can be looked as like a liability due to the fact that you can't really do proper full burst right off the bat, especially when it comes to like getting that blue chest out of the raid, and you just kind of want to burst out as fast as you can and just get it over with. With enmity, it will simply not allow you to do that. This grid is really great when it comes to like in a more say controlled environment, or maybe when speed doesn't really matter all too much. By speed I mean like how much nuke or how much of a burst you're planning to do in like in a few turns, kind of thing. The other major problem this grid tends to have is that you'll be taking some damage at the end of every turn due to Prom Stick, which is like around 5% of your max HP at the end of the turn. So if you're planning to use this without any form of sustain, you probably want to rethink your setup a little bit. I can assure you that it takes a huge toll on your party when it goes like a little bit too long. So okay, I've said kind of like negative stuff all this while, so what's so great about this? It's really simple. The enmity itself is literally acting as like a backup power to the entire grid. The real strength, I would say, is on its Grand Epic Weapon skill, which provides a total of 80% boost to attack, and is also an EX mod, which means any buff in the game will have like a major impact to your team. For example, say having Anira, because she will give you a much better boost since her attack buff is a normal modifier. It wouldn't have much diminishing returns on a primal grid, say like if you compare it to like the Ixaba grid. So thanks to this grid literally could power your entire team to have very good damage numbers when your party's HP say like around 75% or more. You don't even need to lose too much HP to make use of your enmity's weapon skill. Basically, just having a little bit of a HP loss will allow you to hit cap super easily. Even at full HP with the help of some buffs, you can already cap. I've also tested that the moment you hit 50% HP or lower, you can technically cap without any buffs, and if the target or / boss isn't fully debuffed. The other great thing about this grid is that if you're not planning to use the Old Man Invoker in the front line, which I'm not sure why you're doing that, he's really great in the backline for this grid due to the fact that his passive will always trigger. Since you have the Prom Stick in your grid, you technically will have a free clear in every turn, even without needing to do anything. Plus, his passive healing specs will allow you to survive much longer if the raid goes on for way too long. So it really helps a lot if you have like any form of extra sustain. Like say if you're using Anira or whatever, it just kind of heals up a lot better. Or if you're using like this like Hollow Sky Spear, or if you're using Athena, like the refresh and all that will definitely have a much bigger impact in your fight itself. End of the day, the grid is really good, and if you want to get into the primal setup for Fire without borrowing too many grand weapons, why not, right? So if you're into it, why not just give it a try? If you have the resource, that is. But I can give you one very big tip that you should only farm this during MagFest, because outside of MagFest, you probably just deplete your resource like in a few days or so, because 5 BP versus 2 BP, kind of no-brainer there. So anyway, let's just head into the game and I will share and explain a little bit on the grid that I use for this. Alright, now we are in game, so I'm just gonna show you or let you know what I think about some of the grids and shit. So anyway, this is like probably like the only grid that I tend to use most of the time. So what this consists of is that I mean this theme is mostly being used in Tiamat Melis, like I mentioned earlier in the video. So Tiamat Melis, I would always use like my spear setup, and also includes Athena, because I don't know, because Athena is great for like having extra sustain and all. So I'm also using a Hollow Sky Spear or the Akasha Spear, because having the extra refresh or whatever does keep me alive a little bit longer. So in the usual fashion for Bunkle setups will always be the 4+1 setup, where I use 4 of the weapons and then 1 of the old Bunkle weapon. And then I have, because I did made one Ixaba a while back, because I was also using it for my Highlander, but I decided to use that because it does help quite a bit in terms of like increasing my raw damage in general. So like having a much higher damage when my HP is relatively high, it definitely helps out a lot, because of the massive stamina, the massive attack and this extra medium stamina is really great. And of course I did include it Ultima in there, just so I can get an extra cap, and obviously having the extra multi-attack bonus definitely helps as well, because I don't really use, as you can tell, I don't really use Athena Spear in there. But at the same time is that you can probably also use Athena Spear, so you can kind of like apply to everyone. And if you're like maybe not using Athena or whatever, you're using Esther and stuff like that, then I would actually consider using Athena Spear instead. But more or less I technically kind of use this because I just want to make use of Athena a little bit more, because as you can see I am using skill cap for this one. I prefer that because most of the time Athena just does her nuke all the time and it hits quite a bit, and not to mention Tiamat Melis does have like the whole AoE thing, so she basically nukes have an extra nuke at every turn, so it's really good. In terms of summons, I don't think it really matters all too much. You just use whatever you have, and then Sun obviously is like the thing that you must use. The rest is the same. And the other thing is that you can also kind of like make a different, put in a different weapon instead of Ixaba. You could technically just put in like because as you can see there's really no Magna mod here either way, so you can technically kind of make do with like just putting in like a 5-star Colossus Cane in there if you wish. You don't really have to do that. You can it's basically like you just kind of want to put in as much like raw damage as you can, just so you can make your damage a little bit more consistent if your HP is a lot higher. So another thing I wanted to show is that I just want to show you like how the damage actually looks like for this grid. So it's like for this grid, as you can see, it's like even at full HP the numbers isn't really that bad too. So like if you go to like 75%, the damage does go up quite a bit, and it goes even way more if you're like at 50 HP. But honestly, if you ask me, right, it's like, yeah, this is without debuffs, by the way. So if the numbers is usually very high, it's actually really good when it comes to like doing damage in general. So like if I have like no debuffs, so basically at 75% I'm still doing relatively okay. But I can assure you that most of the time, right, in for my grid like this, my HP tends to like float around the 75 to 50% amount, and most of the time I'll try to like heal up and stuff like that, like whenever it goes like below that, because there are times where you just probably would just die when you have an incoming trigger or whatnot, right? Besides that, I think the whole setup for this is relatively easy to make as well, and you don't really have to go with like a spear setup like mine. You could probably just use like a another sword, I go Glory Bringer or stuff like that, and then just burst down with what's that, Alanan and shit, and it'll still probably work. But for that, it's like maybe you kind of want to like take at least 1 to 2 turns first before actually bursting down, because you know you need like your enmity, at least some sort of enmity, just a little bit, you know. But yeah, in a way, this is a really good grid, and I do like having like the extra option that I can actually switch in terms of like, instead of you using just one grid all the way kind of thing. But yeah, so this is like a different type of grid for Primal, and I think it's just a really good option to go with when it comes to like just a full free-to-play kind of grid when it comes to Primal. So yes, I really love this a lot. But either way, I think that's really about like the only thing I can really share with you right now, like the grid, because it's mostly the same for my case most of the time anyway, because I usually tend to use it for my spear setup. I don't really use it for like my sword or whatever. I did use it, but I kind of deleted the setup already because I don't really use it all too much. You can, regardless, you can actually do that, or you could have. I mean, I also use this as like for the Fasan setup, which I'm pretty sure you already seen it from like the previous video. That I've uploaded, like the progression one. So yeah, it's like it's almost the same. You always have that 5 weapons, and you just have Opus, put in like Ultima or whatever. You could put in like one or two Ixabas if you already have it. If you want to have like a stamina niti kind of thing going on with this grid, that works too. It's just really based on what you have. You could literally just run with just the prop grids alone, and like I said, you can kind of like imagine this not being there. You could just put in like the Colossus stick or any sort of like weapon in there. You could even put in like the Rise of the Beast katana in there. You could even put like you can probably put in like any other weapons if you somehow have already made it and just want to make use of it. I think that's fine. You could even put in like the Proving Ground sword too. I think you can do that, but in my opinion, I would honestly say like it's a lot better to not put in any more EX mods in there, because of the whole Grand Epic weapon being an EX mod itself. So it's kind of like having some sort of a little bit of a diminishing return. And the other thing I would like to say is that lastly, is definitely 100% a lot better if you run this with Prometheus. Why did I say Prometheus? Run this in with Agni. So it's like if you have your own Agni, that's definitely a lot better. But you can still somewhat make do with with Shiva or like the, what's the name? Yes, Sylph. So you could also use that if you want, if you don't have your own Shiva. And yeah, but it's a lot better. It's definitely 100% better to just go double Agni, because you know the whole enmity thing going around. And then if you actually are using like extra Ixabas as well, that definitely is going to be a lot stronger as well. So either way, it's a very simple grid. It's like if you already seen my Hector grid video, the whole grid making for that is very similar to this as well. It's just not really that much different. It's just like different element with different set of weapons, but it's end of the day, it still has the very similar setup in terms of like building up the weapon grid itself. So either way, I think that's really about it. I mean, if you really have any other questions, you could technically just hit me out on on Twitter, or just come on stream or whatever. So yeah, that's really about it. Hopefully you guys find this video helpful, or if you enjoy it, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And yeah, thank you guys. Hope to see you guys on the next video or on stream. Bye bye.